When I first started teaching, it was back in the 80s, and there was a big swing toward back to basics movements. And as I've moved through my 30-some year career, I've heard a variety of different angles around criticism of education. The bottom line to me is great teaching in classroom makes a difference. It's about quality teachers, it's about engagement. If you go into the AES classrooms, you'll see teachers who care, who want their children to learn, to understand content, but also to be really great people. And I think that the change that I've seen over the years has been directed toward individual experiences of children, meeting their individual needs, providing service opportunities to our children. Those sorts of things have helped schools to transcend and show that they have meaning and that they can make meaning in a very, very complex world.
I shared this slide this morning with our faculty here at AES, talking about our priorities as we move forward through the next several years. And as we think about what we need to be doing to best serve our clientele at the American Embassy School. And these five priorities, they are not in priority order. They are in general, but these four things are very, very important to us. And of course, our mission, which I point to my red sign frequently in my office these days in these webinars, around our joyful pursuit of excellence in academics, in the arts, in athletics, and service. So when we think about these things, what is the question we should be asking our kids, and what should we be asking ourselves a little bit as we move forward through this process of educating our children and thinking about their future and what it's like not to be ready for third grade if you're in second grade, but what it is that you're going to be needing as you become a better human being. I don't tritely say that I think that our mission, beyond the joyful pursuit of excellence, should be to help our students become the best possible version of themselves that they can possibly be. I can tell you that my team is made up of a very diverse set of skills, and thank goodness for that, because what I bring to the table is certainly not the same as what Dr. Collins may bring or Mr. Bellamy may bring. But at the same time, that set of skills, when blended together as a team, when we're working together with strength, with flexibility, delivers something that I think is pretty special. And when you have again, I would ask you to also reflect back on opportunities where you have created space with other adults and done something marvelous. That flexibility and the blend of talents is a pretty special thing. American Embassy School is a member of the Association for the Advancement of International Education. And I've been taking part in a series of webinars around looking at the shared principles of what great schools do. So at the AAIE New School Project puts in front of school leaders some pretty interesting principles around our leadership moving our schools forward into something really spectacular and interesting for the future. The reason this project started was the same reason that we're doing this webinar online today instead of having everybody hanging out in the hop with a cup of coffee and chatting with each other. We've been forced into this conversation. This is a pandemic silver lining that I will embrace, and that is to get school leaders and teachers and parents and community members to lean into the idea that perhaps we are asking the wrong questions of our children and of ourselves about what schools should be. And that maybe we can rethink a little bit about what the role of education is moving forward. So if we talk about adaptive change, it applies to the organizations and the people inside of it. And I love the principle that they put forward. Use fearless inquiry to continually interrogate and shed embedded practice. Think about that classroom you sat in when you were a child. and think about the classrooms you have visited in schools here in Delhi or in your home countries. Have they really changed? Are the chairs still in rows? Is there still a space where adults sit in front and sort of teach lessons? AES has a wide variety of different kinds of classrooms, and the beautiful thing about this school is that it has been pushing itself forward to shed some of those embedded practices along the way, to be more inclusive. That's related to our statement of belonging. We have these beautiful learning spaces that we've installed in our primary school, in our elementary school. You see a different model of delivery in our middle school for our students to adapt to that changing role as they grow up through early adolescence. And we are beginning to see our classrooms and our high schools shifting toward a more participatory, performance-based space. And so as we look at these areas of capacity, the ways in which we learn, what is the role of the community, and something that I'm becoming more and more passionate about as upon my arrival here in Delhi and with American Embassy School, how we can serve our community in better and more dynamic ways. Something that's on all of our minds and was evident in our parent feedback and our teacher feedback in our surveys that we just ran, that we have a concern about the well-being of each other, and most importantly, our children, and how we are going to use this evidence from our surveys, from our student learning, from our observations, from our anecdotes, from the quantitative and qualitative data that is in front of us to make something wonderful and new happen. And of course, again, going back to our statement of belonging, that equity inside of our school classrooms is so important. So what's the question? What should we be asking ourselves? What is the skills that we need to deliver to our children so that they may not just learn them for a while and shed them to go on to the next thing? That next thing may be the next lesson or the next grade level, but to truly make it part of themselves, part of their own thinking processes. There is an ownership of that learning in an uncertain future. So a couple things that I think we need to face. Number one, this is from McKinsey group. Many of the jobs that are currently in place, and these are blue collar, low skill jobs, and high skill jobs, are vulnerable to automation. Maybe I can engage Dr. Rahul later into the ideas of robotic medicine and surgeries that are being done by robots, and the role of artificial intelligence in medical practice. We could argue that maybe some of the roles that we have as educators could be automated and replaced. We all have been living through the age of the app. There's an app for everything on every device. But as those apps get better and more adaptive, and with the infusing of artificial intelligence and the newest thing, interesting, a panel I spoke at in Beijing last year was the influence of 5G technologies in classroom work. The idea of the highest level bandwidth possible and having all of that available on a device is going to have a profound effect on our lives, like these devices already have, but also in our classrooms, because information will be ubiquitous. Translation software will be everywhere. The ability to understand another person from another place in another language instantaneously will be in our hands in just a few years. So what is it our kids need to know again? And what kind of questions should we be asking? I did a little research in the United States as well. So the students we have in our school right now, it is said that our students will have 10 to 14 jobs by the time they are in their 30s. I've been interviewing people a lot over the last couple weeks, and I've had many candidates who are in their mid 30s who have had this many jobs already. It's 2020. And as you can see, as the bans go across in the United States, and this is said to be true around the world, not just in the US, everyone is seeing themselves as having a portable bit of talent. So, is it the right question to say to your kids, so what do you want to be when you grow up? Because are they going to say to you 10 to 14 different things? I don't even know how to even talk to my girls about this right now because of the fact that the world is changing so fast and the technologies are changing so fast. Now, I think there's a little bit of a misnomer here, and that is that some people believe that there are a whole bunch of jobs, like, the vast majority of jobs out there that our kids are going to hold that don't even exist yet. And there's a lot of conjecture amongst the researchers and the futurists around whether that's true or not. But again, I did a little bit of research on this as well, and came up with this long, lengthy list that I found and in my research. And there's some really cool sounding jobs on this list. I love the idea of telling to my girls, like, you should consider being a gravity puller when you grow up. The mobile biomass therapist role is going to be a really amazing thing you should be thinking about when you get to be out of college. And oh, by the way, you're going to make a fortune as a space junk recycler. How about universal ethics proclaimer? What exactly does a universal ethics proclaimer do, and what it is? The thing is, this list came from 2011. It's 9 years old. And the futurists who designed this list came up with this thinking, in 2030, this is what's going to be. 2030 is in 9 years. 2029, 2030, we're going to be talking about that academic year in 9 years. And we have something we need to get our minds around, and that is we are in a time when there is a crazy amount of change coming through. And so I would say, and I say this carefully, I think the question, what do you want to be when you grow up, is the wrong question. And perhaps interrogating the idea of what problems you wish to solve, what problems do you wish to help, which solutions do you wish to find, is something that might actually activate some ideas that are going to provide your children with ideas around those possible employment opportunities that I just showed you on this screen. Or more importantly, for them to think about what is important to them. And as a parent, my wife and I say this quite often. We want our kids to do well in school, but more importantly, and correct me if I'm wrong, moms and dads out there, more importantly, we want our children to be good people. That's more important than a great GPA to me. And I think every one of the parents on this presentation this evening would say that. And I think that you do that by creating children who are introspective and adaptable and show some cognitive flexibility that goes more toward being a great person than anything at all. And as I spoke about my team, that this wonderful group of people who I have here at AES that I work with every day and solve problems for our school on a daily basis, I think about the flexibility and the cognitive ability of them to understand and look at what kind of opportunities and challenges we have all the time. Digital literacy and computational thinking is a no-duh for us. And in fact, there's two parts to that. For me, and something that AES is digging in deeply into in the next several years, and that is taking what we have as a strength in the school, which is the delivery of academic excellence. In particular case, we're talking about literacy and numeracy, which are arguably as I said this morning, the keys to the academic kingdom. If you have those down, you're able to learn anything. But then to take that to the other level and apply that in a digital environment and to be able to explain your thinking computationally will serve our children over a long period of time. And then it comes down to the soft skills that are really going to carry our kids forward. So it's the emotional and social intelligence, being able to navigate through a variety of cultures, a variety of spaces, and understand how to communicate across those spans. We've been talking a lot as educators around the idea of cultural competence. And I don't ever think that human beings are actually totally 100% able to be completely culturally competent. It's just that's a far-reaching goal for any human being. But I will say, understanding the differences and embracing that as part of being human is going to be so important for our kids moving forward, especially in the age where this sort of interaction online, in digital spaces with people from other places and other worlds and other perspectives is going to be so key to for our kids. Something that your children are getting as they come to AES. 60 different nationalities, amazing breadth of humanity across our teaching faculty, an amazing community in which they're embedded into here in Delhi, and the creativity and innovation. I'm going to close with the numbers on the side over here. These come from PricewaterhouseCoopers. PwC did a survey of their employees around the world. And in a cross-cultural survey, they ask what competencies do they feel are most important in the fellows, the colleagues of which they work, which I think is pretty informative. I asked the teachers the other couple weeks ago what they want in seeing their colleagues. Well, PwC did the same thing. Their number one thing, and this is a bunch of accountants, by the way, no offense, accountants, but you don't have the best reputation for being the most adaptable people sometimes. I've been interviewing a lot of accountants lately, and I tease them about it all the time. But anyway, they said adaptability. One candidate this week told me that their first job, they got sent out in far off places to do audits in the offices outside of the major cities. She said, we had to be adaptable. It was part of our thing in our company. Problem solving, that's a no duh. Collaboration, that's obvious. Emotional intelligence, all these should not be a surprise to you. I was surprised to see, as part of PwC's top 10, STEM skills, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. But as I read into the description, they said, we must have an understanding of the world in which we work. Even mathematicians, even the common person needs to understand the world in which they live. That's that science, tech, engineering, and mathematics point around it. So I thought that was a pretty informative thing. AES continues to try to develop its programs around all of these things and to help develop the cognitive flexibility that your children are going to most need as they move into an unknown and unpredictable future. Nobody would have a year ago predicted we were going to be in a pandemic. The word pandemic was sort of not something that rolled off our tongue in October of 2019. I lived in China. We were hearing a little bit about this strange virus in Wuhan, but it really wasn't that big of a deal to anybody. And it was like, it's just gonna be another H1N1 thing, as I was sitting just a few hundred miles away from the epicenter. But here we are. The silver lining of all this is that all of us, including your children, are getting to flex that adaptability muscle, helping them to move through our changing world right now, and they will emerge more adaptable, with more independent skills than any other generation that we have educated around the world before. So that is a silver lining that we need to admit and see. So with that, I'm going to turn the control back over to my colleague who I think has a video for us. Great.
That's correct. Thank you so much, Dr. Torres.
As we move forward on our reopening of the school year for 2020, I want to let parents know that my team and myself are looking very carefully at all of the priorities around student safety and security and community health.
We are looking forward to welcoming students in a safe and responsible way that brings them together with an abundance of caution. This starts at home. We're asking students and faculty members, staff, to make sure they take their temperature before they even leave their home. That early screening will help us prevent bringing folks onto campus and increasing exposure risk. We know that for some of our families, you're coming quite a distance, and we want to make sure that you're traveling safely and comfortably at the same time. On buses, students will sit distanced but together with family members. Students will wear their masks, and monitors and bus drivers wear masks while they're in transit. Upon arrival to campus, we'll have the thermal screening both at the bus gate as well as at main gates. The use of masks by all of our community members will ensure that we keep everybody as safe as possible. We're following CDC guidelines stringently to ensure that students are protected while they're moving about on campus. We are redesigning our physical spaces so that students are moving one direction as they go upstairs or downstairs, that they minimize their opportunity to cross each other in the hallways, but also ensuring that students stay together in close clusters, that they're not mixing between groupings. We've placed a number of protective barriers across our campus, especially in high traffic areas. We have plexiglass barriers in front of our admissions offices and the libraries, as well as the elementary, middle school, and high school divisional offices, the athletics office. Anywhere where there's going to be a lot of opportunity for interaction through that area, we've ensured that we have minimized the opportunity for transmission. Lunchrooms will also be an area that we pay thoughtful attention to, as students have to remove their masks while they're eating. So making sure students are well distanced during their eating times, perhaps not moving into a common cafeteria area, but eating in their classrooms, especially in the early phases of our opening. AES meets an exceptional level of cleaning standards. We follow CDC guidelines for the solution that we clean with and for the frequency, paying high attention to touch points such as doorknobs, desks, counters, and bathrooms where students might be at a higher level of exposure risk. Hand sanitizers are placed strategically all over campus. One question on everybody's mind is what happens if somebody begins to feel unwell while they're here at school. We've redesigned our health office to create isolation rooms that have an independent airflow from the rest of the campus. Students who have had physical illness will be kept in an isolation room through their assessment, and if they're determined to be at risk for the virus, their parents will be contacted or the faculty member will be sent home at that time. As we speak about community, one of the things that we love is welcoming our parents into our community. But at this time, in phase 1, we won't continue with that practice. We'll ask parents to please use Zoom, phone calls, and other strategies to stay in touch with teachers and to stay close to what's happening. Of course, we'll continue to give you lots of information digitally from the teachers so that you can understand and plan for upcoming events. In 2020, in the age of this pandemic, safety is our utmost concern. We reassure you that we've taken every precaution to ensure the physical safety of your children.
I have the pleasure of introducing our special guest this evening, Dr. Rahul Kalia. Dr. Kalia is a medical director at International SOS. He is based in Mumbai. His area of interest and responsibility include helping organizations like the American Embassy School to assess their health needs, to curate and document their health strategies, and serve as a partner in seeking solutions to the delivery of the services importance. We have been working with this amazing, talented gentleman for a number of months, and he supports not only AES, but a number of other multinational organizations, including our sister schools in Mumbai and Chennai. And he serves as our trusted advisor, as he does with those organizations, to help us and them stay healthy, stay resilient, and stay ready to face the challenges posed by this pandemic of COVID-19. So I turn it over to Dr. Kalia to tell us about some of his thoughts on this pandemic and the challenges moving forward. Dr. Rahul.
Dr. Torres, many thanks for the warm welcome and those kind words. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to try and change gears a little and talk about a topic that has been, well, beaten down quite a bit. And this is a topic that we discuss in our day-to-day lives at all levels. And most of that discussion, incites some sort of an anxiety at some stage or the other. So I'm going to try and talk about, in the next maybe 5-7 minutes, the pandemic and the challenges that we are seeing, maybe a bit of a status update on what India is experiencing, and maybe a bit of a focus on Delhi. I'll follow that with a quick snapshot of what is return to campus strategy, because it is a strategy and it's a very well thought out, structured approach, which has been, of course, under works for a few months, leading up to, of course, the potential opening of the schools when that happens. Last but not the least, a few key messages, because these are the key messages, not just for the students, but for the faculty and for all of us as citizens or inhabitants of any country for that matter. It's ironical that I start with this slide, which is full of numbers. Red color is an alarmist color. You look at red and it concerns you, and that's what we see on this slide, right? And I say it's ironical because my first message to us all is not to get hung up on numbers, but numbers do have a place. So let's start by getting a snapshot of where is the world headed. Well, needless to say, everything is pointing upwards. I mean, all countries have an increasing transmission. US continues to be in the #1 spot, where India is challenging that position. I mean, I know it's not a race, but if it was to be one, well, India is already on the podium and threatening to take the lead over the next few weeks to months. If you were to divide the world into continents, here's what the trend of transmission looks like. The North American continent has seen a few undulations. The curve has been shifted to the right, to the left. However, there is active transmission, so new cases are being added quite actively. Asia, of course, the big numbers being contributed by India and Russia here, has been on an aggressive, near vertical, so to say, trajectory. However, the past 4 to 6 weeks, we are seeing slight shift to the right. That is slowing down in the cases. Europe, on the other hand, clearly highlights that second waves are a reality. And the second waves are actually more bothersome, at least in the numbers, than the first waves have been. So are we able to manage that better? Of course we are, but that's a different discussion, and we'll maybe touch upon that later on. Middle East and Africa are on a more modest trajectory as we see it. Africa has actually defied expectations. We were anticipating African continent to maybe have more cases when this pandemic broke out. But overall, if you see, the case transmission worldwide is increasing. If we focus on India, there are a few areas that are worth a mention. Currently at 7.6 million, with 115,000 deaths. Had I been speaking to you 4 to 6 weeks back, I would have said 95,000 plus cases on a daily basis. Currently, the 5-day moving average has been at around 65,000 cases. The most recent numbers have been lower. So there's clearly a reduction in the new cases that are being diagnosed in the country. The 5-day moving average is lesser than 3%. The recovery rate is rising, as one would expect. If the new cases slow down, the older ones, the recovery increases. And that's what we are seeing. A few states saw a considerable resurgence in activity following a festival. Different festivals in different parts of the country, third week August or on August 22nd. And many states where the festivals are celebrated quite actively saw a resurgence in activity, and quite an active one, which took maybe the next 6 weeks or so to settle down. I've been getting this question for the past 4 weeks. Has India flattened the curve? Well, if the definition of flattening the curve is a reduction in active cases, yes, epidemiologically or statistically speaking, we have. However, a note of caution is that India is like many countries within a country. One has to look at the states because while India's numbers are coming down, we look at Karnataka, we look at Kerala, we look at West Bengal, where the cases continue to rise, while Tamil Nadu and Maharashtra have shown signs of a slowdown. From a testing standpoint, the average 1 million tests per day is being maintained. Some days touch 1.2, some days go down to 0.7. However, this average has been maintained, which is a good thing. India is right on top in terms of total number of tests that we are able to do in the world. However, when we look at the metric of tests per million, India slides down towards the bottom end of that table. Again, it is the factor of the sheer population that needs to be taken care of. We are still testing more than what the WHO's the recommended numbers are. Antigen tests are being utilized quite often. Again, there has been a bit of a criticism by a lot of experts in depending too much on the antigen tests. However, they have their place, especially in the outbreak areas. From an urban center, even 50 kilometers outwards, the healthcare facilities thin out quite radically. And having known that, the testing volumes will take time to get ramped up in the rural areas as well. In terms of healthcare capacity, we are seeing many cities slow down in terms of new cases being detected. However, we are seeing a residual strain in the good hospitals of good reputation. The ICU beds, the ventilated ICU beds, continue to see a bit of a residual strain. The ICU beds are the first ones to fill up and the last ones to vacate. Access to non-COVID emergencies is much easier now, and contrary to what it was in the month of April and May. Because of the antigen tests coming in, the hospitals are able to screen individuals so that healthcare teams are protected and enable access to non-COVID emergencies or non-COVID medical needs. Again, aligned with what I said about testing, the rural and urban landscapes have variable access to healthcare. Sheer number of beds per million population are fewer in the rural areas as compared to the urban areas. And the dependence on public healthcare is more in the rural areas than the urban areas. On the right, you see a few graphs to talk about the 5-day moving average, and you can see a bit of a bump and then starting to fall down. We're hoping that it continues the downward trajectory. However, the challenges that we should not ignore are the festivals, opportunities for people to get together. Very important. We are social beings. We thrive in an environment where we share our best moments with others. However, given the nature of this pandemic, given the nature of this virus, and that the fact that it transmits when people are closer to each other without adequate protection, and the history, as it tells us, the past few months, that following a festivity, the cases start to rise. Of course, the word of caution is that let's not take this downward decline of cases for granted, and that it's just going to take a couple of weeks for them to start trending upwards. So we've got to do our bit. Delhi itself has seen a bit of a roller coaster. Somewhere in August, we saw it come down to what we called as an elevated baseline, almost 1,000 cases per day average. But towards September, it started to climb. And of course, the climb has been quite noticeable. It's starting to dip again, but staying at an average, a 5-day moving average of around 3,000 cases per day. The lockdowns are being withdrawn. As we all know, the government is stimulating the economy. In a manner of speaking, the responsibility to limit transmission is now being outsourced to the citizens in a large way. The government is saying that we not be able to police the 1.3 odd billion people in this country, and that you have to be responsible. So I think it'll take some time for that message to drive home and compliance to strike, because at this stage, the compliance is not the best. New Year. So the next 3 months are quite jam-packed in terms of festivities. And guess what? Delhi celebrates them all. Residual strain I've spoken about. One noticeable fact is that despite the number of cases rising, since there was a bit of a breathing space, when I say breathing space, I'm saying between the spike in number of cases and now a bit of a dip, the recovery rate has ramped up, and we're hoping that it continues to keep apace with the increasing number of cases, because recovered individuals are not likely to be the sources of infection. Here's a quick snapshot of what we have at our disposal to fight the pandemic, and this also forms the backbone or the foundation of all the mitigation strategies, the return to campus strategies. We need to know at what level we need to plug in. Primary prevention is predominantly vaccine dependent. It is not with us. Of course, there's a lot of discussion and debate about when the vaccines will come and how effective will they be. We can address them in the Q&A section, but at this stage, vaccines are not available. So let's park that primary prevention for now. Secondary prevention entails, of course, awareness. That's where it all starts with. An aware individual is protected individual. Social distancing, hand hygiene, masks, and cleaning. I won't belabor this point. We've heard these messages over the past 8 months over and over again. But here is a reiteration of the fact that this is what we have at our disposal as a community to fight this infection. If primary and secondary prevention fail to prevent an infection, then of course comes tertiary prevention, and this is where early identification, contact tracing, quarantining, isolation. We have a role to play as organizations, as groups, to initiate these processes at the earliest. But most of the tertiary prevention will be undertaken in a healthcare setting, and including, of course, treatment and care. The PDCA, that plan, do, check, and act, is a philosophy that goes a long way in enabling us design those 8 modules of return to campus. Now, this is a snapshot of what areas have been looked at when we look at the existing risk at locations like, of course, the campus, the AES campus, and many other organizations and campuses. And we put them through a filter. And if we look at the space, again, a lot of it is in the public eye. People are talking about not letting people sit on adjacent seats. Of course, that's very important. But as Dr. Collins mentioned in her video, how about walking spaces, unidirectional walkways? Again, very important, especially if they are in contained spaces. Social distancing is very important, and so is risk zoning, to make sure that the cohorts of people are continue to be protected. The term social bubble is something that is real, and can really be protective if adopted appropriately. Ventilation strategies. We've spent a lot of time looking at what are the best practices to minimize the transmission of infection. Again, they have been deployed as per our discussions and work with the AES colleagues. I won't belabor the point and go into each of these areas, but all of them are equally important. There is no one more important than the other. The secret is adding these layers of protection one by one to ensure that the campus is as safe, if not safer, than an individual's home, because of the fail-safes that are being plugged in. And as Dr. Torres mentioned earlier, I have had an opportunity to interact with a lot of leading multinational organizations in supporting them in ensuring that campuses are safe, no different from what we do at AES. Of course, there are unique requirements, unique differences between the campus at AES versus a campus of an organization like Microsoft. However, the principles don't change, the applications do. And we've cross-pollinated the best practices to make sure that the environment is as safe, not only for students, the faculty, but also for the support staff. That takes me to the last 2 slides, which are more generic, and of course, they stem out of the observations that we have in the community. And this is a message to us all. We're all fatiguing, 8 or 9 months of COVID, depending upon whether you started in China, as Dr. Torres did. I mean, he would have experienced a fatigue more than we did because it took a couple of months for COVID to reach India. we have been worn down by the pandemic. Well, the word pandemic, if you think really hard, it's caused by a microscopic virus. And the virus is just one problem. It's a pandemonium that it has caused, the impact it has had on our lives, which is wearing us down. It's not just the people who are infected, but people around the individuals who are affected are, suffering as well. So some of us are, of course, coping better than others, either because some of us have better opportunities, better provisions than others, or some of us just more resilient. Whatever the case might be, the message here is we have to develop better coping mechanisms. These need to be plugged into our day-to-day lives. For organizations, these need to be made lines in stone, for that matter, in terms of protocols that have been, of course, done at AES. In terms of nature of the pandemic, a quick reminder to us all, pandemics come in waves. We are seeing maybe the end of the first wave, fingers crossed, hopefully in India. Europe has clearly demonstrated, and so have many other countries like Australia, where the second waves are as disruptive, if not more, than the first wave. So clearly, there is no point dropping the guard. We have to stay resilient. The last point, again, just reiterating the point that I started with, data. I mean, are we asking too much from the numbers? Are we saying, are we looking at the dashboards and saying, when can I go out to school, or when can I go out for a haircut, when can I go out for a picnic or a holiday? Numbers have their place, but garbage in, garbage out. We're not questioning the authenticity of numbers. We are questioning the adequacy of the numbers, not just in India, but worldwide. So again, a humble suggestion and advice is to look beyond the numbers as well when you make those crucial social or professional decisions. Here's an image that captured my imagination many months ago. I looked at it and I just couldn't stop looking, because to me, this was somewhere in April or May, a novel idea of raising awareness in a community that was ignorant to COVID. One of the southern states or cities in India where fit policemen were asked to mount horses with COVID helmets. How novel. However, a couple of months back, when I looked at this image again, I realized that the novelty factor had worn off. I flipped on to another image, and it dawned on me that that's what we're experiencing with COVID, right? The novelty has worn off. We're not as concerned or as scared or as excited, and I use the word excitement in the negative connotation, of course. We're not as worried as a community about COVID. Of course, some of us are, and rightfully so, if we are at high risk. What we're seeing is a polarization within the communities. Some people are completely ignorant or have declared the pandemic to be over in their own personal spaces, while others continue to be worried. Again, the truth is somewhere in the middle. Paranoia has no place, neither has complacency. It is diligence. So again, the parting message I have for us all is that let's not be driven by novelty or excitement, but by diligence, because the facts are that COVID is here to stay. The next milestone is going to be the vaccination. In the meanwhile, all that needs and can be done to mitigate the risk, in our opinion, with collaborative efforts, of course, with AES, have been tried and have been done. So with that, I'm handing it back to you, team, and happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rahul Kalia. It's a good reminder to all of us to stay vigilant. I know that we are running out of time, but we really would love to show our beautiful campus. We have a few students who will bring you on a virtual tour. We'll also hear from our faculty, and we'll hope to also do a Q&A session with you. Thank you.
Hi, welcome to American Embassy School. We're so happy that you're joining us.
Today we're going to show you our beautiful campus.
Let's go. When arriving on campus, this will most likely be your first stop. This is where the admissions offices, director, and assistant director offices are located.
Welcome to the elementary school. The elementary school is made out of 4 different buildings. They're all named after trees: Ashoka, Neem, Banyan, and Peepal. We're so lucky to have an Indian artist called Nek Chand make us these statues around our campus. Now let's go take a closer look. Wow, I love elementary school. It's so fun.
Yeah, especially the library and the makerspace.
Yeah. Welcome to grade 5. This is my classroom.
Welcome to the middle school. I'm Elizabeth and I'm in 8th grade. I'm staying in the rock garden, which is a part of the middle school. It's a great place to hang out during lunch and after school. This is the Hall of Peace. It's a multi-purpose room in the middle school. It's used for our weekly assemblies and hanging out during lunch and after school. This is the 6th grade hallway where they have all their classes. This is the bottom floor to the middle school. In the middle is 7th grade and on the top is 8th grade. This is one of the 6th grade classrooms. Something I love about our middle school classrooms is that it's flexible and comfortable. This is the Jalsa. It's a place for informal gatherings and a place to hang out before school, during lunch, and after school.
Hi, I'm Ellen and I'm an 11th grader at AES, and today I'm going to show you the high school. When first entering gate 2, to your left you have the middle school field and the 3 clay tennis courts. And to your right you have the anniversary garden and the red basketball courts. This is the Tiger's Den. It's one of the places that high school students love to come and eat lunch and hang out after school. Up ahead we have our Stein Library, which is one of AES's original buildings. Let's go inside. When inside you can see there are many books for both pleasure and for school. And the Stein Library is open both during school, after school, and on the weekends. When arriving at the high school, we have the high school office right behind me and the art classrooms right above. Just below that high school office, we have the theater and the art gallery, which is shared between all 3 divisions. Just inside the high school, we have the science department on our bottom floor, the English department on the 1st floor, social studies and world language on the 2nd floor, and the math department on the 3rd floor. The high school offers a wide variety of courses from AP, IB, and general high school courses. We're very fortunate to have a makerspace in the high school which offers electives like robotics and design, as well as the ability to come and be creative throughout the day. This is the High School Breezeway, another place for high school students to come and eat lunch, as well as a place to hang out and study throughout the day. Just behind the high school, we have our Tiger Turf, which hosts many MESAC football games, different sports, and PE classes. Welcome to AES.
Thank you so much for hanging in there. Are there any questions for us in the AES team or for Dr. Rahul Kalia?
Yeah, someone's asking about digital literacy and our laptops use. Yes, absolutely. Laptops are provided to our students in our high school. And in the elementary and middle school, our students use iPads as their device. The next question is there school uniforms? Not entirely clear. We do not have school uniforms, but we do have AES wear that many of our students choose to wear.
It looks like our schedule, class assignment, etc., in a common platform. Anyone who would like to answer that? Maybe the principals?
I can talk about the high school piece. But in terms of instructional platform, we use Google Classroom and Google Suite, whether it's in Google Docs and calendars and Google Gmail. So it's Google Suite and Google Classroom are the most used tech tool in terms of platform that is used in high school, and same in middle school.
There's another question about sports and music. Are there sports teams, school bands? Yes, actually, we do have something called MESAC. It's a league. So there's 5 schools that we compete against. So 2 schools in Dubai, Doha, Abu Dhabi, Muscat. We also compete with the other schools in India. So American School of Bombay and also American International School of Chennai. And of course, that's sort of pre-COVID. We'll see how it will be moving forward. Anyone would like to add anything there? Principals, maybe?
I would add that our athletic director, Mr. Rick Nelson, and the athletic directors from our MESAC League and our ASIAC League, which is our league here in India, have been doing some very interesting and innovative things to continue interscholastic competitions. We have some in the area of COVID, and so we've been doing a lot of quiz bowl, a lot of esports, and they're also collaborating on some leadership activities. And as we get closer and closer to having opportunities to do sports on our campus, we'll be looking at social, physical distancing, friendly sports like golf and swimming and track and field.
There's also a question, Charles, maybe you can help out with that. If we have books for the elementary graders, and also if there are elementary school drama productions.
Sure, I'll take both of those. First, let me tell you that this is the 4th international school that I've worked at, and I have yet to be at one that is as many books available for elementary students as we do at AES. The class libraries alone at the grade levels are thousands of books. You have a library that I don't know the number of titles in the library off the top of my head. And then we have an entire book room that is in addition to our library and in addition to the classroom libraries that are in the rooms with the kids. So we have books on top of books and their new current titles. And it's just a well-resourced elementary school. As far as dramatic productions, this is my first year here. I am aware that we traditionally have 4th and 5th graders participate in a musical production each year. And our outstanding music department this year it found a way to do that, a virtual script and production for a musical, and they're working on that now. So yeah, there's a lot of great things happening in elementary in terms of student activities. Ilva, I do want to point out there was a question that we skipped over as we're going through them about indoor air quality.
Oh, please, if you can carry on with that, Charles, that's great.
Yeah, we not only my understanding, we've had indoor air quality in terms of filtering pollution, and there's actually, you can go online and see the AQI in certain parts of the school. Dr. Collins might want to speak a little more to some of the ventilation stuff that's been going on recently. But yes, as far as pollution, we definitely do everything we can. We set limits for when elementary students can go outside. We plan our arrivals and dismissals in a way when the AQI is high to mitigate children's exposure to the outdoors as much as possible for their health.
Thank you so much, Charles. There's also a question about the waiting pool for admissions and what is the current situation. I would encourage you to reach out to me and my team members in the admissions. We do have spaces in most grade levels for admissible candidates, so I would be happy to also maybe even meet physically on campus with safety measures and outdoor tour and talk a little bit more about the admissions process. And then I also see here we have a former student who can attest to this amazing place. Thank you for being here today. I made lifelong friends there and got top-notch education that put me ahead of the curve when I returned to the US after attending. I attribute much of my success as a person to this school. So thank you so much.
Very kind words. I noticed a parent ask about the opening of the school, and let me address that as best I can. We are currently in plan mode to open in a hybrid mode here we're hoping in the coming weeks. Our community, our board, and the leadership team have been collaborating to seek to find opportunities to work with local government to see if we can find a way to bring our students back to campus. We've consulted with our partners in the International SOS, as well as the United States Centers for Disease Control representatives that work from the U.S. Embassy to give us some help to design our campus programs and our access to the school in a way that we believe we're ready to do that. And we're hoping that in the near coming days, we're going to be able to give some good news out. But in the meantime, we continue to leverage our technology strength and deliver online education to our students.
Any other questions before we will listen to our faculty? And that's the end of our virtual open house, Coffee Connect. I am so grateful that you could join us today. Please don't hesitate to reach out to the admissions for any questions or concerns, or if you would like to even come physically on campus. Thank you so much.
I feel like we are truly loved here by everybody, and we all care about each other. So the students are incredibly diverse. They come from a wide range of backgrounds, and they're very comfortable sharing about where they come from and learning from each other. My colleagues are incredibly supportive and fun to be around. I love coming to work every single day. And the administrators are open to ideas, and as teachers, we're a part of the conversation. Every single person that is a part of the AES community is in an environment where they can be who they want to be, share with each other, and they feel incredibly supported and loved.
If you've ever been to Delhi before, you know that the people are innately kind and generous and love sharing the beauty and the color of India with you. And we do a really great job of making sure that we bring that into everything that we do, from lessons to festivals, to regular daily interaction.
As soon as you walk onto our campus, you're greeted by our beautiful gardens, our facilities. The amount of green space and trees are just absolutely beautiful. It's a place where we can all come together to learn, whether you're a teacher, a parent, or a student.
What I like most about AES is our student body. They are the life
of what we do and of our campus.
I used to teach here at AES 15 years ago. I left 13 years ago. I went to many different schools. I love teaching in other places, but the feeling of belonging and community that we have over here is something that I never found to the same extent as we have at AES. So I came back and I love belonging, being part of this gigantic family.